Hello, everybody. Thank you for once again tuning in to Within the Cauldron. For this episode, I have two lovely co hosts. First co host is my sister from another mother in the UK. We got Miss Willow. And then we
Merry
have a
me.
good friend of
Hello. I
mine
hope you're all okay.
from Colorado, Wendy.
Hi.
Hi. And Wendy, we do have a guest that you ask if I can have as a guest, and I say certainly. And we're really happy to have her. So, why don't you introduce her for us, please?
Well, I'm so excited to welcome our guest tonight, Morgan Daimler. Morgan is an American author of both fiction and nonfiction books, a poet, an expert on all things fairy. Um, Morgan is a folklorist, a witch, a teacher of esoteric subjects, and so very much more. Welcome, Morgan.
Hi,
Thank you
Morgan.
for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I think we all three are excited for you to be here. Um, I just want to tell you, I'm currently reading your book, 21st Century Fairy, for a book club.
Oh, cool.
I'm her.
I just
I'm
had
also
to mention
reading
it.
that book.
He is too. He's in the same book club, so yes. I think Wendy's going to start out first for the questions. Why don't you go ahead, Wendy?
Okay. Morgan, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, like when you began your spiritual journey and how it began?
Sure. So I was raised in kind of a weird situation. My dad was Catholic and my mother was, I think, Episcopalian, some kind of Protestant. And in the 70s, that was not necessarily an acceptable thing to their families. So they came up with what I think is the weirdest compromise ever for the marriage, which is that they agreed to raise any children without any religion. They wouldn't be Catholic, they wouldn't be Protestant, just nothing. So that's what my sister and I grew up with. There wasn't any religious structure, there wasn't even any like spiritual structure. But I was part of the Irish American diaspora, so we did have like some of the folk beliefs, particularly things around the idea of the good folk, of fairies. So when I was 11, a friend of mine introduced me to witchcraft, to Wicca, through Scott Cunningham's book. And having no framework at all otherwise, it all just made sense to me. The idea that there were spirits, the idea that, of course, if there's a god, there's also a goddess, and all sorts of other options out there. So that was kind of what got me started on this particular spiritual path as a witch. When I was about 12 is when I sort of really officially started getting into it, I guess we would say. And then the fairies have just always been a big interest of mine. And that sort of led me into studying the folklore and focusing attention on that.
Oh, okay. Can you tell us how many books you've written and how long you've been writing? I know there's a lot.
I'm gonna try to remember this. I believe I have 49 or 50 that are published, and I have another four that are either in editing or in process that will be coming out over the next year and a half. So, and I started writing in high school, but I never published anything, thankfully, at that point. But as an adult, I was in my 30s. I want to say 31 or 32 when I started writing and then publishing.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can you talk about how you do your research on your books? Because some of your books are pretty intense, so I bet your research is very intense.
Yeah, so I mean, some of what I have in my books is my personal experience and things along those lines. But on the more research heavy end, I have kind of over the years, over the last 20 years or so, amassed a small library of my own. So I look to a lot of those books as sources. I have learned over the last 15 years exactly which websites are good to go to research. Um, I am lucky enough to have an eidetic memory. I have a photographic memory is another term for it. So that also helps with the research. Certain things like which sources I got an idea from, sometimes even like what page. So it's kind of a combination of all of this. And I'm super lucky, particularly through social media, to have a lot of friends who are also interested in these sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll help me sometimes if I'm looking for a particular article and I can't find it. It's also given me a lot of great opportunities to have conversations with people. So some of my research, not as much in 21st century fairy. I think I talked about some of my own experiences in that one. But in some of my other books, particularly Paid with a Kiss, which is the one that's out at the end of this month, I include a lot of material from other people, from conversations I've had, people that wanted to share their experiences as well. So it's a little bit of everything really goes into the research.
Great. That's awesome. How difficult is it to find good resources for your books, especially when you write about other cultures?
Yep. How difficult it is kind of varies a little depending on the topic. I have some connections to Ireland. I obviously do not live there. I'm in the United States, but I've been there. I have friends over there, so that kind of helps with the discernment and helps with finding good sources there. With that culture, I do speak Irish, not fluently, and I read and translate Old and Middle Irish, which is the older forms of the language, to access the mythology and stuff directly. So that also helps, I think. And in general, I think the hardest part with sources is just learning how to tell like the good sources from the bad sources, particularly on fairies, because there's a lot out there and there's a lot that's older that's been out there, that when you actually kind of understand how to tell what a good source is, you realize even though they're popular, everyone loves them, not necessarily maybe the greatest source. So a lot of it, I think, has just come down to learning over the years what to rely on and what not to rely on. But I usually try to look to sources within the cultures that these things are coming from, as much as possible.
Cool. Great. I know it takes a lot of work. From different authors, they said that the research is endless.
It
Uh,
really is. That's half the fun, though.
yeah, it is. Willow, you want to take number 5 and 6, hon? Or do you have the questions? Okay.
Is it my turn?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Go ahead, hon. Number 5 and 6 you can take.
No. What? While we're waiting for her, just wanted to let you know, Morgan, that I've actually met Laura
Yeah?
O'Brien and John, and
Oh,
I did
fun.
I think one of their last tours in Ireland with them.
Oh, very fun. Yeah, Laura and John are great people.
Chrissy, is it my turn?
Yes, go ahead, hon. Can you hear me okay? I think she froze. I think she froze.
Yeah, I can now. It was lagging.
Okay.
Am I moving? Yes. Right.
Yeah.
So number 5. Can you talk about the importance of using ethnic, cultural sources when writing?
Authentic.
Sure. And I think that is a really important issue. One of probably my biggest complaints sometimes about some of the books that are out there is that they don't do that. And you can always sort of tell. But I think anytime you're looking at beliefs, folk beliefs or any kind of beliefs that are coming from a particular place, from a particular group of people, you have to kind of respect that as the source for those beliefs, that's where you need to learn about them. That's where you need to look at them. That's the best way to understand them. When things get sort of filtered out and moved into different cultures, a lot of times you lose the nuances, you lose the understandings that had existed. And I personally am a big advocate for keeping those older original understandings and kind of focusing on how the beliefs were in the source culture, basically. Like I said, that's part of the reason I write primarily about Irish material. And I look to Irish sources. I look to Irish people that are there today. I look to older material that's been recorded in Ireland. Dublin University, the schools collection there is a really great source for folklore. Irish material, it's 100 years or so old. And I think that anytime we're not doing that, anytime we're not going to the place and to the people and to the culture that the beliefs originated with, I personally think it's a little disrespectful, but also I think we then lose what those beliefs actually are. We end up with like a watered down, related but not the same kind of view, kind of belief. And I think we should all be trying to look for the more genuine, if that makes sense.
Most definitely. Yeah.
Yes.
How about number 6, Sherry?
Is there an encounter with fairies, aka the other crowd, you can share with us?
Sure. Let me try to think of which one I want to share. I joke sometimes that my life is a little ridiculous with the amount of randomness I've managed to get into. So I'll share this one. So this happened at Midsummer about 25 years ago, 26 years ago, something like that. I was in my early 20s. I have a friend who owns a metaphysical store near where I live. And she was there, I was there, and then there was another friend of ours there who was a little bit younger. And it was late. It was probably 9:30 at night. So the store was closed, but we were just hanging out. It's something you do when you're in your early 20s. You have nowhere else to be. You just hang out in a closed metaphysical shop. So yeah, it was summer. We had the door open and we were just inside kind of talking. And all of a sudden, all three of us looked up towards the door, and it looked initially like a giant moth. But when I say giant, I mean like the size of a bird. It was the biggest moth I had ever seen in my life. White wings. It came in and kind of fluttered up above the door, and we're looking at it, and the younger friend who was with us and I both saw it the same way, which was as a small human figure with wings. And it kind of fluttered there for a minute. And my friend who owned the store, she saw it just as a moth. But she was concerned, like, how do we get it out? It can't stay in here. It'll die. We need to get it out. And my other friend looks at it and just points at it and goes, "You," like really forcefully. And it just drops straight down into one of the window displays and disappears. Because then we rush over to look, to try to find it, if it was a moth to get it out. And it was just completely gone. There was nowhere it could have physically gone to. It just disappeared. And that was when the friend and I, talking to each other, realized we'd both seen the same thing, the little humanoid figure with wings. For whatever reason, our other friends didn't. But that's an experience that sticks with me. And it was interesting because it was something that several of us experienced at the same time. Several of us saw. So, yeah.
That's amazing.
That would be a good intro into your surprise.
Yeah, well, I was just going to get to that. Yeah. So, Willow, you have that surprise that we was talking about?
I'll have to share the screen to bring it up because it's on me.
That's
it's
fine.
on my
That's
panel.
fine.
But
That's
yes,
fine.
so I will share her with you.
Yeah. Yeah, this is something really spectacular. It's amazing. And I thought since we was on the topic of you tonight, Morgan, that this would be a great gift to you to show to you.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it.
Just technology, you know how that is.
Yeah, it takes a minute.
Yes. Thank you to bear with us. Thank you for your patience a lot. Yeah, we saw this probably a few months ago, and I was just like amazed by it. Very amazed. And it's really something that is spectacular to see. And Wendy, you haven't seen it yet either, so I think you would like
Actually, I
this.
did. You showed it to me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I did. Oh. And it is coming up, so just be patient, everybody.
Is
Yep,
Sherry
plenty.
frozen?
No, she's not frozen. I don't think.
Oh, okay.
Oh, maybe she might be.
Looks
Technology,
like she's frozen.
yeah, technology has been kind of glitchy over in the UK for the past week. So yeah, whoop there. Oh, she's be coming back probably. So, but you
I
know,
will say too, whenever I talk about this subject in interviews like this, there always ends up being extra
something.
tech problems. So
I know I noticed that Willow has the same issue at times too.
Yep.
When she talks about it, it's like they don't want to talk about it, but then they wanted to talk about it, you know? So, oh, she's back. So just wait.
I don't see her.
Yeah, she's coming.
There we go. Oh, she's spinning. She's spinning.
She's spinning. Yeah.
While we're waiting. Oh,
Hang on a minute. It is coming.
Yep, it's coming.
You know,
So,
Mercury has been out of retrograde for a little
Has it
while
come up?
now,
Right. Has it
so,
come up?
you know.
Right. I've got the video there.
okay.
They can be little toys.
We understand. I think Morgan understands too.
Right.
Here we go.
Yay.
They're making it suspense. They're making a wait. Right. Here we go. Are you there?
Okay.
Yes, we are. Do not do anything, guys. Leave it alone. Catch that I got off my fairy. Primrose.
Oh, very interesting.
Here she is again at 0.25. A bit clearer.
Yep.
And one more time so you don't miss her. And here is a still shot of her. This video and evidence was caught by myself and is legit. It is no bird, bug, or butterfly or anything. This is a fae folk, and this is a catch that I got off my face.
Yeah,
it's very interesting.
I just wanted to show you that since, you know, you do a lot of fairy books and stuff too, that because, you know, not too many people actually seen a fairy. And I know you probably have since you have written many
No,
books.
and
So, and Willow, you know, this is one of her,
they're just playing hard to get at the moment. They're being
yeah.
they do this a lot because Primrose and me are really close, and this is of her. So everybody else is trying to involve in it. So let me try again, and you will hopefully see her this time. And do not play with the stream. Leave it alone.
Yep. I'm leaving it alone.
Here we go. Right. I'm going to just stay on this page. Then hopefully it's not going to glitch. Can you see it?
Mm-hmm. I can see it.
Right. Ready? Catch that I got off my fairy, Primrose. It's being done at 0.05 and she's absolutely amazing. This was caught by me, myself. And here she is again at 0.25. So she slowed down a little bit more so you can see her a bit clearer. And one more time so you don't miss her. And here is a still shot of her. This video and evidence was caught by myself and is legit. It is no bird, bug, or butterfly or anything. This is a fae folk, and this is a Primrose. Her name is Catch Primrose. That I got off my fairy.
Yeah, you can tell that it's a fairy. I mean,
and that
you
is
know,
my fairy.
Yeah, tell Miller when you go to see.
I see them with my eyes.
Primrose,
I've seen them since I was 5 years old. So yeah.
Yeah, like that I totally understand.
But we wanted to show you that because we thought it was really awesome, and you know, it's something that I'm hoping that people would just believe in fairies, you know, because you know that was an awesome video. So, but when we get back, Mindy, I think it's your turn for number 7. 7 and 8.
Sure. Morgan, do
That
you
video
have
was
any
very
advice?
cool. Thank you for showing me.
Oh, you're welcome.
Morgan, do you have any advice for those who want to build a relationship with the other crowd, with the fairies?
My best advice, honestly, is just to be respectful. You know, the one, I don't want to say mistake because that feels very judgmental. But the one thing that I see people doing sometimes that I feel is maybe not the right direction is sort of treating them like they're wild animals or pets. You know, and I find that it works a lot better if you treat them like they're like you would treat another human, with the understanding they're not humans, they're not in human bodies or what have you. But you know, if you want to be a good neighbor to someone, what would you do? You'd be polite, you'd be friendly, you'd try to help them when you can, all of those sorts of things. And I think when it comes to the good folk, to fairies, that works just as well. You know, don't try to order them around, don't be rude, don't be disrespectful. And right there, you're going to be in a better place, you know, starting out than if you are approaching them that way. You know, just be nice, be polite, all of that. Just basically, literally, like if you wanted to make a new human friend, how would you go about that? You know,
Yeah,
very similar, except you're dealing with beings that aren't human.
Yes, very
And
much.
can you describe who you believe fairies are, such as spirits, beings from another dimension, or extraterrestrial?
Sure. So my personal view on them is that they are beings who are from a different reality, whether we want to call it a dimension, a world. You know, I'm pretty much comfortable with whatever term other people choose to use for this, but another reality, that they have the ability to come into our reality and influence it and then go back to their own kind of at will. which is something humans can't do. We can't just decide, to step into another reality. There's ways, through witchcraft and metaphysics and such, to send your spirit different places, but we can't physically step into this other world the way that fairies can move back and forth. I have definitely heard people say that they're interdimensional, extra dimensional beings. There is a very whole long-standing, I won't say disagreement, but discussion between people who are more fairy focused and people who are more like UFO and alien focused. There's a huge amount of overlap with a lot of what people experience and things that happen between those two groups. Joshua Cutchin has a book called Trojan Feast, if anyone's curious about this in more depth, that really looks at like UFO and alien encounters, fairy encounters, then he also looks at Sasquatch, and how much they overlap. So there are definitely people who will tell you that aliens are actually fairies. There's definitely people that will say that fairies are actually aliens. I don't have a personal opinion on the extraterrestrial angle to things, but just to acknowledge that is out there and people do have a lot of thoughts on that. Like I said, I tend to see them as beings that are from a different reality or world and can come into ours and then interact with us. I think that they're often shapeshifters. I think that we have a whole range of different things we experience from, like in that video, the smaller winged kind of fairy, similar to what I had seen years ago, except that was, moth wings. But you'll also have beings that look fairly like humans, but are not. You have things like the leprechaun in Ireland, which is like 18 inches tall. Basically like if you put 3 fists on top of each other, that's about how tall a leprechaun is supposed to be. And you have animals, you have cats and dogs and horses and all sorts of things. So there's a lot going on with what fairies are and how people perceive them, which I love. I think it's amazing that there's so much diversity and there's so many different experiences that people have that are similar enough. We can say this all seems to be, something fairy, something fae, but they always can be also unique and personal and different. And I just find it endlessly fascinating.
That's awesome. I totally agree with you too.
I agree.
What has been the most difficult or frustrating thing to get people to understand about the fairies?
This might qualify as a controversial opinion with some people. I think the thing I struggle the most with when talking to people is getting people to understand that there is potential for some of the fairies to be dangerous. We tend to often have a mindset that they're only helpful and they really can't do much to us. And that's just so not the reality I've experienced, and also not anything that I've found talking to people or that I've found like in looking at the older folklore. Again, not to compare them too much to humans, because you want to be careful not to start thinking of them like as humans, but humans aren't entirely safe. Some humans are dangerous. A lot of times it depends on context, and it's the same with fairies. Some of them are helpful and nice and would want to be your friend, and others want absolutely nothing to do with humans, not in the human fan club. And then there's some that are just dangerous because it's in their nature to be that way, So I think that's the biggest misunderstanding that I personally encounter and struggle with, is just trying to convince people that there's that kind of a range that you can experience and encounter. And it's definitely a big range.
Absolutely. And Willow,
There's
you're shaking your head, so you
Well,
must.
yeah, I've always
Okay.
been the same way. Like a lot of people have come to me, oh, I want to work with the fairies. They're really beautiful. I said, do not misunderstand them. They can change in a flash of light. I said, you've got ones that will love you. You've got ones that will not socialize with you. You've got ones that will just hurt you for no reason. Do not entertain them. Do not go near them. And I don't really like to associate them as being good or bad. They're not either good or bad. They are their own character and their own energy, and they're not of this realm, even though they visit this realm. So they're not good, they're not bad. They are just them. And that's important to understand.
Yep,
And
I completely agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Willow, can you read this one, hon?
Me. Dangerous fairies. I was once told some of them don't care about our rules. They just want to have fun. Fairies are very much about the not going by all human rules. They have their own rules, their own categories and ways that they are. If they're in communication with you, they like you, they will respect you to an extent, but they will not bow down to you. They shouldn't have to bow down to you. And that they just look at things different to us. Like we could sit there and have a full-blown conversation about certain things, and they won't understand what that is unless they've got a really long connection with them. Luckily, my guys know me really well because I've known them since I was 5 years old now, so they've got used to my character and how I am. But for a lot of other people, when they come into that, and I'm sure you agree, Morgan, for a lot of people that come into that, they automatically expect that these fairies understand what you need, what you want. They know how this world runs. Yes, they've seen a lot of things here, but they don't understand our characteristics and how we act. They're very cautious of us. Even if they love you, they're still cautious of you. And you have to build that relationship. You have to. So,
Morgan, do you have anything to add to that as well?
Can I add something into this really quick? So one of the first experiences I had with them was during a meditation, and I was the young witch, and I wanted to flow with everything. And I, during this meditation, was talking to a female fairy, and I said, I just want to be part of everything. Well, that was a big mistake. Um, because
yeah,
she made me a
they'll do
part of
that.
everything. She dropped me down into the earth,
Yeah.
and I laid there as not me, but part of the earth looking up. And I stayed there until she decided that I had had enough. And so you have to be really careful when you ask, and very specific when you ask for
Oh,
anything,
yeah.
because that's exactly what she did. She
Yeah,
made me
They'll
become
do
part
whatever they
of
like to,
everything.
believe me. They will.
yeah.
Never ever tell a fairy, I want to do this or want to do that, and you're not sure of doing it, because they will make you do it. They will do it, and you'll be like, oh my God. Like,
Yes.
I think Willow and I are very much on the same wavelength here.
and I've
Um,
literally only just found your channel, and I was watching a few of your things yesterday, and I do actually really love some of your videos. And because I've learned with the fairies more naturally, I've not done studying and stuff. I've learned because I've been with them since I was 5. They've educated me. So seeing somebody with your sort of, so I've always been interested in the older stuff, but I've never found people I can connect to for that or trust. But you're just absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. So I'm looking forward to watching more of your videos.
yeah, I very much understand where you're coming from. I also have had experiences since I was very small. One of my earliest memories actually is related to that. And part of why I got into studying the folklore actually was I needed some context. I was having experiences, I was having things happen, and luckily for me, my family didn't discourage it, but they also didn't really understand it. So I found looking at the folklore, it gave me some structure and it made me feel like I wasn't alone.
Yes, that's how it was for me. A lot of my friends were my faith folk. That was what my friends were.
Yeah.
And
I
mine
had
was a
my
young
first
age,
at
my first
5.
experience. Yeah,
I was
5 years
5.
old, yeah.
I want to tell one
Mixed
really
feelings.
quick story because I was thinking of it when Wendy and Willow were both talking. So being careful what you say around the good folk. I was at Lau Crew, Slave Natalia in Ireland, 2016. Now I feel like that was forever ago, but 2016. And we had climbed up to the top, and I had had an incident happen on the top actually where I got pixie led is usually the term, fairy led. I got lost in the middle of a place I should not have been able to get lost. I was there with a group. Suddenly everyone in the group disappeared. I couldn't find anyone. It was entertaining. You just turn an item of clothing inside out will usually break it. But that had already happened, and we were getting ready to walk back down. And for people who haven't been to Laocoon before, it's very steep. It is very, very steep going down from the top. And the person I was walking with, I'd been telling them about my experience with the whole pixeled thing, and they were like, oh, you know, I'm surprised that would happen because, you know, normally you're so knowledgeable and whatever with the fairies. I started laughing, and I was like, well, you know, if they want to make me look silly, then they're going to make me look silly. If they want to, you know, knock me on my butt, then that's what they're going to do. And as soon as I said it, I felt a hand grab my ankle, and I fell backwards on my butt on this very steep hill. And then I just started cracking up because I'm like, I literally asked for it. I said, if that's what they want to do, that's what's going to happen. And as soon as I said it, it happened. And then my friend is just looking at me, trying to figure out why I'm sitting there laughing after I fell down. I'm like, yeah, it was 100% my fault. What just happened. Should not have said it, you know, because they were like, yeah, we will.
Oh,
I
wow.
had
They'll be mischievous if
Yeah.
you invite them to be, most definitely. Little tricksters when they want to be.
I had an experience in Ireland as well.
Yeah.
I was in, I think, Tara, and we were going in this one specific area that John said that they were at. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, whatever. And all of a sudden I started hearing a fiddle playing. Nobody else heard it but me. And he looked at me and he said, if you run, I'm going to chase you and catch you because I'm not going to have to explain to, you know, the consulate why you disappeared.
Right.
So
Yeah, it was
that
fun.
kind of leads us into the next question about what would you caution anyone who is trying to build a relationship with the fairies about, or the dangers when working with the fairies? So we talk about the dangers. So how about the relationship? How would someone build a relationship with the fairies?
I think I'm going to give a two-part answer here. I think for a lot of people, you just need to go in with good intentions and want friendship and try to work to have that. I will say some people, you don't have a choice. It's like self-defense. They're going to be around you, whether, you know, whatever your opinion is about that, they're going to be around you. Some people, they just have an affinity for. And in those cases, you're already in it. So you just have to kind of learn the best ways to move forward with it.
Yeah.
I guess I'll also add a part 3 that I've known people who are really dedicated to wanting these connections. They want to work with fairies. They want to have a relationship with them. And it just never happens because it's a two-way street. And if they're just not interested in that person, you know, you can't force that. You can't make that happen. So again, I think if you're in that first group where it's possible, but you need to put the effort in, just put the effort in, you know, make it clear that's what you're interested in and be respectful about it.
Understandable. Yeah. I definitely agree with all that too.
Oh, yeah.
As a folklorist, what is one thing that people are misinformed about that you wish they would stop saying?
So many options here.
It's a tough question. Blame it on Wendy.
It's a good question. It's a good question. I think my current thing that I struggle with is the way that the term seelie and unseelie courts have become this sort of universal thing where everyone is trying to fit every kind of fairy into either one or the other. As a folklorist, because that is originally Scottish folklore, well, the border, so northern England and southern Scotland, folk belief from that areas. And it's not that it's bad that it's spread, because folk belief will do that sometimes. It's more that people take it out of that cultural context and really try to turn it into like good versus evil fairies. And that's not what it ever was supposed to be, or even what it is. You know, the Seelie court, the good, aka good fairies, the Seelie court, which means like blessed or fortunate court, are generally more inclined to be helpful to humans, but they can still be dangerous. They're not 100% safe either. And the Unseelie court, which means like unfortunate, ungodly in Scots, it's not 100% like pure bad evil. They are generally more malicious towards humans, and they don't necessarily need a reason to be. But we do have stories where they do things that would be considered kind or helpful if they like that human. It's a lot of times it's very much about context and, you know, yeah. In the culture, it was just a sort of a convenient way to kind of understand, like, these are the slightly safer and the slightly more dangerous groups. But unfortunately, it got taken out of that context through fiction. And in fiction, it really got distilled into, like, these are the good guys and these are the bad guys. And I see that now a lot with modern pagans, especially here in the US, trying to approach fairies as if, well, they're all either, you know, Seelie or Unseelie, they're all either, you know, good or evil, and it just does not, it doesn't work that way. It just doesn't.
Bad in everything.
Yeah. And bad in everything.
It's
not really are angels, is it? If you think about it, a lot of people see the concept that an angel is a good being, and in many ways it is, but an angel can be just as bad and as evil as what a demonic energy would be as well, you know. So it's all about just how they are to that person at the time. Like,
I've always been a little afraid of angels since I did read the Bible when I was an adult, and those Old Testament angels, you don't mess with them.
They certainly do not look human either. A lot of people get this like godly looking, human looking, and some of them look like beasts. They would scare the hell out of you. But
Yep. There's one kind, I can't remember which one it is, cherubim or seraphim or something. That's
cherubim is a really
just like wheels with eyes.
I think that's cherubim.
So yeah, angels are scary.
Wendy, back to you on number 12.
Do you have a favorite book that you have written, or one that you are most proud of?
Oh, that's a good question. I think the one that's coming out, Paid with a Kiss, is probably the one that I'm the most proud of, because it started as an article and then it just kind of took on a life of its own, and it ended up incorporating a lot of different material, a lot of different interviews with people, and I think it's important for something to be on the market that's like that, because we really don't have anything that talks about it. And I do run into a lot of people who assume anything on that subject, fairies, love, fairies, sex, fairies, gender, any of that, is just impossible and nonsense. And we have such a deep history of it. So I thought that was really important to explore. But I think probably the best thing I've ever written would be Fairy, the Other World by Many Names. Because that one I get into different beliefs about the world of fairy in Ireland and in Scotland and Wales and England, and kind of how all of those things influenced each other and influence our modern understandings. And I think it's probably more academic, but I don't know that it's like popular with the masses. But that's probably the one I'm the proudest of, I think. So definitely those two, somewhere between those two.
Awesome.
Do you have any advice when working with the Irish pantheon?
Yeah, keep in mind when working with the Irish pantheon that they are very much connected to the Aishi, the people of the other world, effectively. There's a lot of overlap. So I think some of the same advice I would tend to give with the good folk also apply with the Irish gods, like be respectful. Don't make demands. That's just not how that works. If you ask for something, you need to offer something. If you feel like you receive something, you should give something back, in gratitude. It's very much about like reciprocal relationships. And also from my own personal experience, and again, very much like Willow was saying a little while ago with the good folk, be careful what you ask for. If you ask for something, in my experience with the Irish gods and goddesses, they are going to give it to you. And it's not going to matter if you then change your mind and realize you didn't actually want that. Because they, if you ask for it, you need to be prepared to actually get it and then deal with the consequences of that. So
Be careful making contracts.
Yes.
Yes. Definitely. And just be careful how you phrase things. I will say that the Irish gods in general are a little more lenient than the good folk. Like if you promise the good folk you're going to do something, you have to do it. There's no real, I changed my mind, I don't want to do this anymore. Like once you're committed, you're committed. With the Irish gods, I find that you can kind of go renegotiate, or if you have an excuse, an explanation for why you can't do the thing at that time or in general, they're a little more willing to understand. I will also say in my experience that the Irish good folk are some of the more strict of what's out there. Do not know why that is. I'm not even going to try to guess why that is. But like I have been to other places that have different types of beings similar to them. Like in Iceland, you have the Alfar, the elves. Much more easygoing is all I'm going to say. So
I heard about that. I heard about your experience in Iceland.
Iceland is a very intense place. I was not expecting it. As someone who tends to see these things, of what would seem to be a physical way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to explain that. You get on the ground in Iceland, it's like, oh, there's just stuff everywhere. So that was a bit of an adjustment. I've been other places that have a lot of activity, but nothing like Iceland.
Wow. Now, speaking of your new book, I've been following you on Facebook, and I know you're really excited about the pages and everything. And I know it's going to be released in 2 weeks, according to you on Facebook. Is that correct?
Yep. Its original release date through my publisher was the 1st of May. So Bialchina Beltane. I think Amazon, because they normally will do this, is releasing it the 29th or the 30th.
Oh, soon.
Yeah, I don't know why they always seem to release it a day or two before the official publishing date.
Yeah.
But yeah, so about a week and a half, and that'll be out in the wild.
Can you tell us about that book a little bit? I mean, you kind of touched a little bit on it, but tell us why we should buy this book, even though we probably will. But
I'm so bad at telling things.
I need to look for some of their other books as well, definitely. So there's like 50 books. So I think I've got a nice massive range to go by.
Yeah, to be fair, out of the 50, I have a 12-book urban fantasy series. I have a high fantasy novel. I have 5 or 6 that are translations of the Irish material. So it's a diverse range of items that are out there. Probably about 30 of them are specifically fairy beliefs, Irish paganism, that kind of thing.
30 books. Well, I'm going to have to try to hold myself back on buying all of them then, aren't I? I've been looking for fairy books, so
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You might also like my friend Daniela Simona. There we go. I can speak, I promise. She's Romanian, but she's written some really good books about fairy beliefs. Not just that she grew up with. She has a really good book called When Fairies Meet, which is about comparing the Irish and the Romanian fairy beliefs, and it's really fascinating. So if you're looking for good fairy books, maybe keep her in mind too.
Yeah, I will
Mm.
definitely. I'll go and look her up as well.
Yeah.
Wow,
Definitely.
cool. Yeah, this I was looking at your books and I was like, oh my gosh, I thought you only did like, 10 books. And I was like, there's a whole bunch of them. And it's like, okay, I need to get a second job or something
Yeah,
to buy
yeah.
all these.
And all of your books are reasonably priced. I have to say, they're very
Yeah.
reasonably priced, and
So
I own several.
I write for Moon Books, which is a publisher based out of London, and they have a series. They're called Pagan Portals, and I love them. I think it was the most brilliant idea for them to do this. They're shorter books. They're only generally about 90 to 100 pages, and they're meant to be introductions. So the idea isn't to throw you like 400 pages of really deep, overwhelming material. The idea is to give you enough that you can decide, first of all, if you want to learn more, but also have a really thorough grounding in the subject, like get the basics of it. And I love that. And yes, I've written like 20 something pagan portals because I just think it's a fabulous series. And I love the idea of the little introduction books. And then you can decide from there if you want to learn more, if it's piqued your interest, how you feel about it. And they are less expensive because they're short.
Why don't you tell us a fun fact about you that no one knows about?
Oh, it'll take me a minute to think of something nobody knows about. Because I've responded to way too many of those share a fun fact about yourself on social media posts. So I think a lot of things that I would say are probably already out there. Okay, well this is what I have mentioned before in random context, but I'll add a little bit of folklore with it. So I have central heterochromia, which means my eyes are blue, but then they have a ring of amber around the pupil. And I've always just loved heterochromia in general. I think it's so cool when people have two different colored eyes or one eye that's two colors. And I recently found out, talking to a friend of mine in Dublin, that she grew up with the idea, like people would just say this, that when you have different colored eyes like that, it means you can see into the spirit world. That the two colors represent seeing in this world and then seeing in the other world at the same time. Yeah, and it wasn't anything I'd heard before, but I love it. Another great thing about folklore, you're always learning something new, which is great.
That is cool because my granddaughter has one blue eye and one green eye.
I love that.
Wait till I see her. I will see her Saturday. I'm going to tell her that, and see what she says.
Yeah, see if she's maybe seen anything interesting.
Yeah. Let's catch up on some comments here.
There is one there saying about offerings and all.
Okay. So Christopher says, listen to you all stuff. Got off work and glad I caught this. Okay. He also said, so cool. My daughters would enjoy a copy of this, but definitely keep my eyes open for purchasing these. I think he's talking about the 12 books. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
then there is a question underneath.
Yep.
Are there common offerings?
Yeah. Are there common offerings that work well to connect with, or apologies to the good folk?
Definitely. Sorry, I got slightly distracted by the icon, and that person is from Father Ted, and I love that show. So just a slight distracting moment.
Nope, that's okay. I'm sure he knows that.
Yeah, I think in general and historically across folklore, what have you, dairy products are always a solid go-to. Butter, cream, milk, any of that kind of stuff. Yeah,
Honey.
Yep, honey. Honey's a great option. I have in the past used just pure water in some situations. It just has to be clean, pure water.
They don't like dirty.
No, that's a really good way to cause yourself problems. Give them anything that's like dirty or anything like that. I do find with food too, it's if you want, because some people like to share their meals with the good folk or with spirits in general. You always want to give them their portion first. Like, don't give them your leftovers. Unless you're in one of the... I didn't hear what Willa said.
Oh, what'd you say, Willow?
Yeah, that's very true. Never ever feed them last. They should always be first, yeah.
Yep. And it gets that respect, you know.
Yeah.
In Ireland, at least, there's a belief that the fairies, because of a very old agreement that happens in mythology, are owed a portion of what humans have, of the harvest. And like when people brew alcohol, the fairies supposed to get the top percent of the still. Yes. So it's that same concept. You want to give them from the best of what you have to show your respect. You don't give them like the dregs and the last of it. Not stuff you've taken a bite out of. I wouldn't. So
I have to offer them some food because I'm missing some rings that I put on the kitchen counter to do dishes, and then they disappear. And it's like, I asked the grandkids if they took them or anything, you know, looked under everything, because we got cats, and thought, oh, you know, they like shiny things too. I can't find them. So yes, I'm going to offer them some food tomorrow before I eat some and see if they bring my rings back.
Yeah, you know, you'd be surprised how often I hear people saying things is either car keys or jewelry.
Yep.
That just disappear. And usually when you do get them back, they're going to be left somewhere very obvious that they definitely could not have been the whole time.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, try a little offering. See if that helps.
Sometimes they don't bring stuff back though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't sometimes. I've got this beautiful silver ring that they had their eyes on for ages and ages. They took that. I put offerings out. I sang to them. I'd done everything to try and get that ring back. Did it ever come back? No. And I said, you know what? One of them was going around with that as a crown on their head now, loving it. I can just see it.
Well, you know, one's a moonstone, one's an amethyst, and one's my diamond ring, you know, so I'm like, this all shiny. So, but you know, if I can't find them, then they must be wearing it someplace and having fun with that.
Nothing treasured, believe me.
Yeah. So, you know, it'd be okay if I don't find them. I'd be, you know, heartbroken, but hey, you know, they might need them more than I do. And I had them for over 30 years, so it's okay.
It's worth trying. You can at least try.
Definitely. Yes. I would tell you if they come back. I would message and go, guess what? They came back.
Yeah, let me know. Let me know what happens.
So, do we have any other questions, ladies? Offhand or anything? Got a few minutes here.
Okay, I've been trying to figure out how to pronounce something. You're a priest of...
Oh, in my bio. Dina Maha. Dina means people and Maha means good. So
Dina Maha?
Close enough.
Did I say that right?
Close enough. Yeah.
I was like, I could not figure out how on earth to say that.
It's just the Irish. It means good people, good folk.
Right. And I've tried, you know, I've done that not Babel, but the other, what's the other thing that's online to speak Irish? And
Forvo can be a good option, and there's one called Aber.ie, which is ABAIR.ie. I'm dyslexic, so disclaimer if I just misspelled that, but I think that's right.
Yeah, it's even on the I think it's Duolingo that I was on, and I just could not get that AI voice I couldn't, it just would not work for me. So, yep, I'll have to try another one because, trying to read some of the material without understanding how to pronounce it, it can be very difficult.
It
There
can be
is
a
a
little.
question here.
We got one last question, and then we
I
have to
recall
end
on
the
an
show.
article that Morgan wrote about the difference between hauntings of ghosts and fairies. Do you think there is crossover between the two?
And the
Um,
second part of that is because
Because
I
I
read that.
read on Norse stories about elvins and every and very old ancestors.
yeah, that is one of those layered, complicated questions. On the one hand, looking just at the first part of the question, there's definitely crossover where things are happening in the same place that are maybe different things going on. I've certainly seen cases where there's like human ghosts that are around, and there's also the good folk and the fairies that are around. And that can get a little confusing, I think, for people experiencing things. The second part of the question, if I'm understanding it correctly, because there is an idea in some of the Norse material that some ancestors, not all, go into the burial mounds and then become elves, and or then go on forward as elves. And we certainly do see that as well, like in the Irish material, but it's generally more not so much that the person actually dies and then is a ghost and becomes a fairy or what have you. It's the idea that the fairies would take people, and then that person becomes a fairy in that world, through whatever process that happens through. So there is an overlap between like the human dead and the good folk and the fairies, but it's a very sort of muddy, confusing overlap. And I will say this is going to vary depending on where you are. Like I know I've talked to some people in Scotland who do have the view that the she are the elves, the fairies are human ancestral spirits that are now transformed into these other beings. I don't personally share that view. I tend to see them as like it is possible for humans to end up fairies, but I think a lot of the fairies are not human. They've never been human. They are just different beings. They're from a different place. I just want to be fair and say there are different viewpoints on this. So my opinion is not by any means like the decisive answer to the question. But yes, I do think that there is some crossover and overlap. I just think we don't understand it very well.
Interesting. Well, Morgan, it's been really great to have you on. Very interesting. You're a very interesting person.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you for having me on. I've really enjoyed the conversation, and it was great meeting everyone.
yes, we really enjoy having you, and maybe we have you back again next year. Would be great. One last question though before we go is, and I forgot to ask this. I apologize. Any new projects that's coming out besides, Paid with a Kiss?
I always have new projects. I just exist from one project to another. I have a book coming out in September called Pantheon the Irish, which is part of another series that Moon Books does called the Pantheon series. And it kind of looks at all the basic beliefs of Irish paganism, and then it looks at the individual deities and the spirits. So it kind of gives an overview of everything you would want to know if you were interested in Irish paganism. And then next year, I have a book on the fairy courts coming out. That'll be next March. And that is basically because we've established that I have a personal annoyance with the way people interpret the fairy courts. It's looking at the actual Scottish folklore, and then it's looking at how that gets repeated in fiction and gaming, Changeling the Lost in particular, and then how that then has kind of been incorporated into neo-paganism. And sort of gently encouraging people to maybe look at the older sources and the cultural sources for those ideas, more than, like Jim Butcher, for example, more than fiction. Not that he's not a great author, but probably not where you should be getting your fairy beliefs from.
Yeah,
Well,
no.
thank you so much. Just stay for a few minutes and we're going to end the live stream. I want to thank the audience for tuning in. And, we love you. We're here for you. Always walk in love and light forever in your heart and soul. Many blessings, everybody. Good night.
Great Goddess, I am so thankful to have you guiding me, protecting me. I am so thankful to have you guiding me, protecting me. I am Great Goddess, I am so thankful to have